So most of the time when I hear complaints about the game, it's always about specific cards or decks being a little too good. I mean, if there's a tier 0 deck running around, you already know there's going to be a lot of frustrated people and a lot of division between the player base. But to be fair, this is inevitable, and what is inconvenient for one person might actually be convenient for the other. Some people love tier 0 formats, some hate them, some people love diverse formats, and some others do not. But there is one thing that Yu-Gi-Oh players despise commonly, regardless of their goals. I mean, think about it, what pisses you off the most independently of the format you're in? What is the one thing that holds you back from succeeding when you're so close to the goal? I am talking about draws in this game as well as time rules. Ever since YCS Secaucus back in 2018, we went kind of from a turn-by-turn procedure to a sudden death procedure where the winner is decided based on who has the most amount of life points at the end of the phase when time gets called. So in other words, you could be in a clearly losing position with like 10 less cards than your opponent, but because you burned 500 damage to your opponent with a Volcanic Scattershot, all of a sudden you win, congratulations. This did not exist back in 2018 because we actually had to play the game out for a couple of turns, so more often than not, the outcome of the match could actually be decided naturally even without time. Time wasn't really there to change the dynamics of the match, but rather to give a limit to the players for how long they can actually play the game out. Whereas now, time is almost a mechanic where you have to play burn cards or gain life points cards in your side deck in order to have a chance. And of course, because of the fact that the winner of the match could actually be decided by something stupid like gaining life points or burning for damage, you already know how people are willing to stoop so low just for a W. Slow playing by repeating the exact same actions over and over, like reading the same card like 5 times or asking the exact same questions, taking forever to think, checking the graveyard 20 times, preventing the opponent from moving into the next phase with the pretext that you have something at the end of the phase. A bunch of convenient excuses to prevent the opponent from playing Yu-Gi-Oh, and that isn't clean at all. Now, the opposite side of the spectrum is also a thing. Sometimes you may not even be slow playing, but your opponent will pretend like you are. So he would rush you to make you lose focus, make you misplay, and also make it so that you spend as little time as possible in your turn, so that he spends more time on his turn. So it really goes both ways. I've seen way too many people with really bad intentions because of time rules. Which is sad because I feel like outside of time, people are usually pretty much always super nice. And the thing is, when you are in the heat of the moment, you're not really focused on details, so you're not really picking up on any of that. So it is extremely easy for people to cheat you out in time, which makes it even more unpleasant. And again, this whole time system thing brings out the worst in people, which is something you're not really trying to see. People have often expressed their frustration with the system by wishing to revert back to the old time rules. But with how massive YCSs are now becoming, it's kinda getting a little difficult to go like an hour and 15 minutes maybe into overtime. The sad thing is, even with the current time rules, sometimes we're going like almost a full hour into overtime, which is ridiculous. Whether we gotta wait on random deck checks, or judge calls, or bugs in the system, or people just not handing in their match slip, it is bound to take a lot of time. Especially at the first couple of rounds. And again, this isn't really Konami's fault. You can't blame Konami if someone is getting deck checked or anything. And also, again, it's not really your fault if your match is taking longer because it's more complicated. It's just unfortunate that other people have to pay the price for like 1 or 2 matches. There are honestly very few solutions to this problem because I feel like as long as events are big as the ones that we're getting right now, we're always gonna have issues. You let me know in the comment section below if you think there might be solutions to this problem. Anyways, now let's talk about another major issue in this game, and this time I do believe there is a solution to it. Draws in Yu-Gi-Oh are not the best, like at all. We have an interesting policy that prevents players from intentionally drawing in Yu-Gi-Oh, which is very interesting considering the fact that other games actually can. As a matter of fact, you can almost argue that intentional draws in chess are pretty much a part of the game. You just can't draw in the finals and you can't lose on purpose, which is very similar to Yu-Gi-Oh in like Worlds, for example. I mean, you can never draw in the finals, but whatever, you get the point. My issue is Yu-Gi-Oh is one of those games where drawing is very easy and also against the rules, but also a little too convenient. It's almost like you're being encouraged to break the rules because when we're seeing what happened in the past couple of YCSs from like the last like 5 years, we're starting to realize that in top 64 playoffs, we're not really seeing too many X3s anymore because we have way too many X2 ones. And this is a huge problem when people are aware of that and just all draw last round. How convenient. Like when you're X2 at the very last round, you obviously don't want a loss, but at the same time, a draw kind of guarantees you in, so it's very strategic to draw with your opponent. If it happens naturally, then whatever, good for you, but if you have to force it out, well, you're getting banned. And again, none of that is stopping anyone from drawing because again, the incentive is definitely there. Now, this is ridiculous. Okay, look at this picture. Out of the top 64 playoffs in YCS Dortmund, 36 of them made it with an X2-1 score. This is 56% of the field in Top Cut, which is not okay. This is extremely unfair for people who got their third loss in the YCS and actually think they still have a chance. Because again, back in the days before time rules were a thing and before draws were like everywhere, things were a little different. People could actually still make it out with 3 losses. But this time, only one player with a 9-3 score made it to top 64. So the problem at hand is the following. Draws are completely unfair because they guarantee 2 X2 players in Top Cut while also knocking out an X3 player. They are also against the rules, but it doesn't stop people from doing it anyways. And I believe the solution is super simple. We completely get rid of draws by forcing people to win or lose by reverting back to like a sudden death turn-by-turn system, or we make intentional draws legal in Yu-Gi-Oh! So the thing with draws is that they always happen after the full 45 minutes of the round is done. But without them, people will have to play out the match even further. This would unfortunately make the tournament go on much slower because we're always gonna have to wait even longer for each player to finish their match. Alternatively, one decent solution would be to prevent players from having draws on the last like 2 rounds. This solution is the most realistic because worst case, we only have to wait extra time for like 1 or 2 rounds at the very end when there is less players anyways. If anything, we're going to have even more X2-1s in Top Cut, which is even more unfair for X3s. And when I say that, I am taking as an example the other card game out there because for them, intentional draws are not illegal, not immoral, whatever. What is your personal opinion on intentional draws? Do you think they're harmful for the game or are they immoral? And what do you think about time rules? Do you think they're great or garbage? I feel like my thoughts are always really nuanced when it comes to these topics. I have both good and bad things to say about pretty much everything, so it's really difficult for me to criticize something. My goal is to be both as objective and constructive as possible. Always trying to find solutions instead of just whining. And again, my goal is not to encourage anyone to do anything against the rules, it's really just to spark discussion. With that said, that's all I had for this video, so guys, thank you so much for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.